Hello, all of you beautiful beings who join me here in the now moment and who join in the future now moments when you watch the replay. I'm just finishing up a cookie that was in my mouth. And as you come in, just say hello. So the conversation that is ready to be had pertaining to depression and what this energy really energetically is, we're going to dive into some concepts that will likely expand your awareness of reality and expand beyond maybe things that you have heard before. You might hear some of this and think, I'm nuts. None of that matters. And it's really about the energy, and I know and radiate that there's a part of you that will understand. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been guided to share this now. So before we dive in, I just want to say hello to all of you who are here with me live. Lauren and Michael, Joanne, Katie, Layla, Roz. Awesome. And everyone else's name just hasn't appeared on my screen yet. Thank you for being here with me. So, depression is something that I've been exploring for a very long time. Very, very long time. And for those of you who are newer to my feed and to my live videos, or you've never experienced me before, when I bite something, let's say I grab something that I'm very intrigued in, I dissect it throughout every single layer that it could possibly be dissected. So I've been really uncovering depression very consciously and intentionally since 2006 when I began my undergraduate degrees. And what I learned in psychology in my undergrad didn't feel like the whole picture. It felt like there was something missing about why are so many people on this planet depressed? Why are so many people on this planet feeling like they want to commit suicide, or feeling like they don't want to be here, or feeling like their energy is being drained and that they're not able to tap into their creative power and potential? Why is this happening, and why is it happening so rapidly now? And so this is something that I've been unpacking for many, many years, and finding lots of different teachings and practices and all of the awareness to really uncover what is going on here. And we're going to be talking about things that are out there, right? This is a conversation about depression that has likely never been had before. So I'm going to do my absolute best to put this all into language that can be understood by the human, including myself. And so let's just have some fun with it. And please feel free to ask any questions about anything that I'm talking about in the comments. I'll see them as they come up. So to begin, the most important thing to really be in awareness of is, first and foremost, that there has been an energetic field around the Earth and around some of the other planets in our solar system that has essentially trapped souls into what we call the matrix here, into the planet Earth. So the way that this has worked is that around the Earth there is like a magnetic sphere, a magnetosphere that is encapsulating the Earth. And when a soul transitions, when a person transitions, the evolution that journey, that spirit goes on, or is to go on, is they leave the body and you enter in a passageway into the Bardo state. And the Bardo state is a place where you get purified. And in the Bardo state, all of your experiences from your human life become purified. Anything that you have done that the human would consider bad or wrong stays there and gets purified. All is forgiven in this space. And then from that plane, then the soul continues to journey beyond and rise up and ideally return back to the monad. That said, what this energetic sphere around the earth has done is when a person dies, their spirit begins that journey, but what happens is they hit this energetic wall that they don't get to enter into the bardo state. They bounce back and get pulled right back into the earth. And the most important piece about this is that when that happens, a fragment of the soul breaks off. So you leave a fragment of your soul in that energetic barrier every time you go through this cycle of reincarnation. So we're going to be talking about that, and I'm also going to just preface this by saying that we are in a very auspicious time on this planet where that barrier around the earth is actually breaking down, and it's very important to understand for this conversation about depression and to dive deeper into what this is really about. And the sirens are going, the thunder is rolling as this conversation begins, so I actually have never heard that sound before out here. You guys are outside with me. I'll just give you a little bit of a view of where we're at, so to support the energy of this conversation. Anyways, back to the sphere, this magnetic field around the earth. And this magnetic field is actually held in place by our moon. Our moon holds the magnetic sphere in place. So when say you die and then your spirit leaves and it gets bounced back by this magnetic sphere, part of your soul breaks off and gets left into the magnetic sphere. So then a part of your soul is fragmented. And every time you go through this cycle, another piece of your soul is broken and left into this magnetic sphere. So you come back then, you reincarnate into another body, not by choice. And this is a lot of what we talk about when we're talking about moksha, right? Freedom from the wheel of samskara, the wheel of reincarnation, right? Which the Buddhists talk about and all these other traditions talk about. This, how do we break free from this cycle of reincarnation that has been known to be mandatory? Well, it's not natural for it to be mandatory. The reason why this reincarnation has been mandatory is because of this field that was put around the earth. And this field was put around the earth to feed an agenda of a very highly advanced group of beings that have been essentially feeding off the soul energy of this planet, and of the more souls that are trapped inside of this magnetic sphere, the more energy that it's able to drain and siphon off. Essentially, our souls are being used as batteries to fuel this agenda of these other dimensional beings that have very dark and manipulative energy, and if our human language would say it was evil, right? That's really probably the best word that we have to make sense of this. It's pure evil. So, and Carly, I see your question, and we'll talk about this. And Lauren, Anunnaki is just one little fraction of that. It's just one little, let's say, race of the bigger agenda. The reptilians, the draconians, the Anunnaki, these are all just races of this bigger agenda that is actually far beyond what we human language know as Anunnaki, reptilian. Hold on. Okay. The moment that those languages get pulled in, certain energies come, and in that moment my guide said, stop, put up a shield. So everyone is now encompassed in a shield. Anyone that comes into this video now or in the future is shielded. You're invisible on the astral plane currently. Very important. So we can have this conversation without any of us being interfered with, because they will interfere with you the moment you start talking about them. So Let's just see if we can shift our lighting a little bit here, since we're getting backlit and the storm's coming through now. Okay, so that's only one small group of this bigger agenda. So what ends up happening, the more times that we come back, right? Because we can't leave, and when we can't get past that magnetosphere, we keep getting pulled back, we leave parts of our soul. So when you feel depressed here, it's because you have literally fragmented off so many pieces of your soul that your soul is drained, is exhausted. And to weave in this question that Carly brings up about suicide is because we're so drained and so exhausted here, and feeling so depleted, and feeling like our power is continually has been stripping away from us, and it has been doing that. That has been happening. We want to escape it, right? There's this escapism that's in it, and it's like, okay, well, because we don't remember every time that we leave, we die, we leave, and we get pulled back by this magnetosphere. The thing about this magnetosphere is that we forget. It has been designed so that when you come back, you've completely wiped your memory clear. So you don't remember that the last lifetime when you committed suicide, or the lifetime before, and the lifetime before, you're stuck in this magnetosphere. And it's actually the more times that you commit suicide successfully and die and get pulled back, the more fragmented your soul becomes. Because every time you go to that magnetosphere, a part of your soul gets fragmented off. And the more depleted and exhausted that you become every lifetime that you come back. And this is something that I've done a lot of journeys to uncover, because I have had a lifelong experience and relationship with the suicidal energy, with this it literally felt like there was this energy that was constantly speaking to me and urging me to kill myself. And what I came to realize was that was the magnetosphere, because every time a soul would kill itself and go in, it would essentially leave a fragment of our piece of our soul there. So this is why we have so much depression now on the planet, is because we have been stuck in this cycle of reincarnation that is not a natural cycle, and we have been entrapped here. So I'm seeing all the questions that are coming through, retrieving the pieces and all of that. We're gonna move into that. This is very important that we unpack it piece by piece to stay following and track of what the conversation is being had. So, as this has been happening, we have essentially found ways. The effortless passageway for a soul is a certain angle. It's an actual certain angle that the soul comes through, and the soul must leave in order to make its way out of this magnetosphere. This is how it's been on the planet. Why so many starseeds are able to come onto the planet now is a lot of the starseeds that are coming onto the planet now, and who haven't forgotten, the children who are very fluent in their intergalactic genealogy, I guess is the best way to say it, like their galactic history. They are aware of where they're coming from. Is that these starseeds that are coming through are literally on a mission to essentially blast open all of the starseeds that have come here before. It's like there has been a series of rescue missions for this planet, and what ends up happening is that the moment that those starseeds would come through the magnetosphere, they forget. They forgot what they were here for, and they forgot their entire geometry of how to then exit the magnetosphere and not get stuck in it. So a lot of very ancient and very wise people are here and are drained and exhausted because they've been continually going through this process, and they had been originally sent here as a part of, a rescue mission. So now we're at this very beautiful time, because Earth has I don't know if you can hear the massive thunder and lightning that's taking place now. So the Earth has gone through a major, let's say, contractual renegotiation, where there has been a continual endeavor, say, it really has been a war that has been happening in the higher planes, where, let's say, the forces of light and the forces of darkness, just to use language that a human can track, have been negotiating the release of Earth, and also the release of some of the other planets in our solar system that are also caught into this trap, Saturn being one of them, which is why we see Saturn as the lord of karma, but Saturn's just trapped in that same thing as well. So Mars is another one that's trapped in that same thing. So what happens with the Earth in the last 11 years is that the Earth has gone to level up, and a contract has been signed between the forces of darkness and light to release the Earth and allow the Earth to go through its evolution. And there is going to be a series of solar waves, solar flares that come through and actually break down and disintegrate that magnetosphere that has been entraining the Earth inside of it, keeping the Earth inside of it. That barrier is going to be blocking down, so that when souls pass, they will be able to pass through and enter into the Bardo state and continue on their natural evolution and journey of transitioning. And when we transition, we actually get to choose wherever we want to go to next. That said, within the cycle that has been, we've not had a choice. We've literally been enslaved here, which is why slavery and things like this has been such a huge thing on this planet, because it has been the reason why we're continually here. So from that perspective, these children that are coming through now are also, starseeds just like you and I are, that are coming through, and they're not forgetting, because the magnetosphere has been weakened and has been brought down a notch already. So they're able to enter in and not forget, so that they can blast open the remembrance within us all, and we can all restore our geometry, so that even if we transition before the complete dissolution of that magnetosphere, we remember there's a certain alignment we must make in order to exit through in a proper Bardo's passage, right? So I'm just going to take a pause and scan through any of the comments that come through while I was in that moment of time. Yeah, the thunder and the rain. This is like This is the mountains of North Carolina. It's a tropical rainforest here, even though you wouldn't think of it. So how do we retrieve the pieces? Great question. Fragmented pieces. So the key to this is, first and foremost, working on developing your light body and your plasma body here while you're human, because when you develop your light and your plasma body, you can actually then travel to higher versions of the Earth. You can travel to higher timelines, and you can actually travel to work with your oversoul, and then even higher, your causal body, your monad. If you can cultivate your plasma body, and just for a moment, can everyone still hear me even though the storm is picking up outside? Or I can move inside. That said, it just feels really good out here right now. So if you can't hear me, just let me know, and I'll shift inside. So anyways, developing your plasma and your light body here, so that you can, thank you, Lauren, so that you can continue to then, when you develop your plasma body, right, you can lay and you can be in meditation, and literally the plasma body is this energetic body that lives inside of your body, and it can travel outside, and it can travel to the magnetosphere, and it can start to pick up the pieces of your soul and heal them in the higher planes. And then when your plasma body does that, your human body does that as well too. So the most auspicious thing that we could be doing right now is to be developing these inner mechanisms, right? Developing our plasma body, developing our light body, working with our Merkabah, and we can be journeying to the higher versions of the Earth and to the most auspicious being that you can learn from is actually your highest self. And I'm not talking about like our human version of the highest self, you know, our oversoul, even that. There's much, much, much higher levels. And this really landed for me one day when Alex and I were talking in the car, and he had said something to me after we were in this we went on this plasma body journey, and he had said something, and it just landed to me. I saw this like big, giant, like pink and aquamarine luminescent being sitting in this crystal cave in deep meditation, just projecting out all of these different stories. And it was just holding the projection of my life and all the other timelines that I'm associated with. That being is the being that you want to connect to and learn from and remember who you truly are with. So, are you using the term plasma body instead of etheric body? No, I am not. I'm using plasma body intentionally. It's different than your etheric body. So, plasma is the, what's the best way to describe it? There's actually scientific theories out there right now actually realizing that the universe is all of this plasma. And it's like this gooey is like the only word I can find for it. Like when you step on a trampoline and you kind of bounce, well, imagine that trampoline was like all jello, and that would kind of be like what the feeling of your plasma body would be like. Your etheric body is going to be more of your light body, and your light body. And you can go from your plasma to your light body. We actually have so many bodies inside of us that we can navigate through. And then crystalline is actually, as Lauren says, the crystalline body. What I know to be the crystalline body is actually your human physical body when it has gone through its genetic mutations to awaken the crystalline structure of your human physical form. Because the human body, the DNA, the genes, those are all crystals, and once they are turned on and mutated to the higher octaves, to the higher frequencies, that is your crystalline light body, essentially. And this body can actually dematerialize and rematerialize somewhere else, or be in multiple places at one time. It's not bound by the physical laws of matter that we currently believe we're operating under. Those are all outdated physics, essentially. And as we start to awaken and play with our plasma body and start to actually journey and astral travel and go into these other dimensions and go to the higher planes of the earth, where you can actually sit in the healing pools and heal from all of the lifetimes of going out and having these fragments of your soul broken off, right? So it's a process of using your plasma body and journeying and doing deeper inner work with your higher elements to reintegrate those pieces, and to have a proper Bardo passageway, right? It's all about geometry, which is why, sacred geometry is such an important conversation, because everything is energy and everything is physics, even though our physics here is limited by really religion, because ultimately the separation of science and spirituality has limited how much we can actually have scientific evidence for. They must merge, because ultimately science and spirit are one, mathematics and spirit are one. All of these things that we have kept separated because of the laws and legislations about separation of church and state, and all these things have stopped how far we're able to actually scientifically prove, if you want to say that, or validate what we already know to be truth internally and what we've already seen. There have been many of masters who have been on this planet who have dematerialized their body, who have lived immortal lifetimes in this body, and who simultaneously travel through stargates and go to other planes and have reintegrated those pieces of themselves. So the most beautiful thing to kind of wrap this conversation up, and for now, this is something that we'll continually talk about because it's very important, is the awareness that we're in the earth at a very beautiful moment where everyone who's here, so long as they really strive to live a very virtuous life, and so long as they really strive to be kind and compassionate beings, they will be able to exit the earth and actually move along their journey instead of continuing to get trapped and pulled back, which creates this continual depression. It's like that depression is almost this essence of being enslaved somewhere for millennia and having no say over it, and continually having your soul sucked from you. That's depression, and that's what's been happening. And as we really awaken to that true inner knowing, we can realize that one of the key elements of actually moving beyond a life of depression is our spiritual initiation, our higher spiritual developments, and starting to work with our higher bodies, to work with the parts of us that are divine and immortal. And it's very important that that be a discussion that's being had in the realms of healing depression, because so many people, like myself, have lived with depression for a very long time and have been handed just pills or cannabis or alcohol to kind of suppress the depression, and none of that is actually doing anything. That's actually setting us up to commit suicide and things of that nature. It's literally leading people. Some of the main pharmaceutical drugs for depression actually have side effects of suicidal thoughts. It's like, how does that make sense that you would give someone that's already having suicidal thoughts a drug to help them with their depression that has side effects of suicidal thoughts? To me, that sounds like the manipulation working. That sounds like, oh, there's actually an agenda where they want people to be committing suicide, because the more times that they die, the more essence of their soul that gets stuck in this magnetosphere. So this conversation about weaving spirituality into the healing of depression is so important. It's so available for us now, because right now we're in a time on the planet that is more auspicious than any time before, because of the contract that has been essentially negotiated to free the earth and allow the earth to go through her continual evolution of becoming a star. So just one other question that came through here about the Merkabah. So your Merkabah is, let's say, your spaceship. Your Merkabah is your energetic body that allows you to travel through space and time. And the basics of what our human has uncovered is that it looks like a six-pointed star. That said, that's actually a very limited Merkabah. Our actual true Merkabah is huge. It's this massive energetic ship that we essentially travel through space and time. And working with it, there are various things you can do. It's all about rotation. It's all about spinning of the Merkabah, and it's all about creating a frequency, creating a vortex or portal or stargate through energetic movement and circling and spinning. And there's an amazing man that you can follow. His name is Graham, and I can maybe tag him in this, and he posts a lot about how to create these vortexes and these stargates, right? So it's about this angle is so important. Everything is about angles. Angles are so important for the creating of these light bodies and of these energetic bodies, and it's all geometry, physics, and math. So there are a couple of teachings that are very helpful to really start to integrate that, really start to learn through that. One of them, the freedom teachings, the Tantri Ari teachings. That's what Alex and I have really devoted our time and energy, especially recently. He's been studying it for a very long time. And so these are all different teachings that you can start to learn the actual mechanics if that's something that you're interested in. And not everyone's going to be interested in the actual basic mechanics of, the geometry and the mathematics and the numbers and all those things. That said, some people are. Some people really geek out over that. I'm one of those people. And so that teaching is really great for if you're inspired by the mathematicals and all of those things. So I will tag him in this. And there's some people in here that are, taking a lot of drugs and drinking and smoking and all these things. And I can speak to this as someone who used cannabis for 18 years. And this body is 30 years old, so that's more than half of this life I was using cannabis, self-medicating to essentially suppress the mass depression that I was on, and I also drank for just as long. You know, I began very young in 7th grade drinking alcohol and smoking cannabis to really like be able to be here as a human in the immense amount of pain and depression that I was in, and to like silence the constant suicidal conversation that was happening. And now I'm 2 years sober from all of that, and I've actually been able to start to look at depression very differently, because I'm able to actually be in it and see it from a different perspective, because I've gone through all of this research and of the psychological and the metaphysical and the spiritual and the geometric and the human design, right? It's even in our human design where we can find depression inside of us. And from a human design perspective, depression is actually this energy that is designed to put pressure on us, that physical pressure that you feel in your body or in your mind or in your emotions or in your spirit. It puts pressure on us, and it's trying to actually pull us up out of something that is not aligned for us. So if we think about it from the conversation that we're having about this you know, sphere that's been around the earth, that's been encasing and trapping souls inside of it, if depression is something that reaches down, pressures you to pull you up out of something, well then from this perspective of this massive global depression, that depression energy is literally trying to reach us down and pull us up out of this, you know, reincarnation loop that we've been stuck in. And the way that it works is it's actually designed to put so much pressure on you that you have no choice other than to start questioning the true nature of your existence and the true nature of what is happening inside of you. So from that perspective, it is a mechanism in our root center in human design that actually puts pressure on us to begin questioning, why are we feeling this way? What's the true nature of our life? And to actually put us in, start to push us towards our higher spiritual learning, which is actually going to then free us from that entire cycle to begin with. So coming into a couple of these questions, so interesting, what happens to those who want to suicide now? Well, wanting to commit suicide and committing suicide are two different things. I highly recommend that you don't commit suicide, because you're going to just fragment another piece of your soul. And you're going to come back into this life, and you're going to forget everything that you've learned in up until this point now, and you're going to go through it all again, and it's going to be even more painful because you had fragmented another piece of your soul. So I highly, highly do not encourage suicide. If it's your time to leave the planet, your body will start to go through sickness and disease and all the different things. It will create a mechanism for you to transition. Suicide is never the answer. And the magnetosphere is still put in place around this earth, and it will be for a very long time. So you're going to just continue to go and fragment pieces of your soul off. Even if it is starting to transition, that energy is still there, and it's still trapping people here, unless you understand the basic mechanics and develop these higher bodies where you can actually transit into the Bardo state and not get stuck by the sphere. So if you're having suicidal thoughts, reach out to someone and start to learn how to really transmute those suicidal thoughts. There's a lot of things about what you have going on in your body. You know, looking at what's inside of your body is number one. Anytime someone comes to me to depression, we go right into what is going on in your body. Do you have mercury in your body? Do you have mercury fillings? Do you have, any chemical toxicity going on in your body? Have you taken antibiotics your whole life? Have you been on prescription pills? These things all leak so many heavy metals inside of the body that create constant suicidal and chronic depression. So we really got to look at that piece first to get yourself out of that constant conversation about suicide. And that's really the first step. So suicide is never the answer. And if your time is complete here and you have mastered your light body and your plasma body and your geometry, and you have communed with your guides, and they're going to drop you a light to literally allow you to move through into the Bardo state, then that will happen naturally. It will not happen through taking your life. So if you are having a lot of suicidal thoughts, reach out to someone that you trust, that you know can support you and really help you to move beyond that and clear that up so that you can fully reach your full potential here in this life. And you're happy to reach out to me, and if I'm not someone that can support you where you're at, I can refer you to someone that would be more available to really serve you. So John asks, do you think depression also stems from childhood trauma? Absolutely, right? So the thing about childhood trauma, and this is a key because everything that I'm going to bring through, it has a metaphysical, has a spiritual. So the childhood trauma is a direct manifestation of the reincarnation cycle. Because of this reincarnation cycle, we're trapped and bound by the laws of karma. Now, the laws of karma are only in this lower dimensional plane. Once you move beyond this and get outside of that, there's no more karma. So, because you go through the proper Bardos passage, and when you go through a proper Bardos passage, you purify all of that, and you continue on your journey. Unless there's like really deeply embedded samskaras, which conversation for another day. So when you're constantly in this cycle of reincarnation, you're not going through the proper Bardos passage, and you're bringing all that information back with you. And the most because this has been a very highly evolved consciousness that has been enslaving humanity here, what better mechanism to keep people enslaved than to awaken all of their karma at a very young age, that they experience a great deal of trauma? Because once you experience a great deal of trauma, this mechanism knows that your brain is going to do certain things to essentially shut down certain parts of you. You literally, what happens when trauma happens at a young age is the brain like puts it inside of a bubble. It creates a little bubble around it, what we call the samskaras, the crystallization of a wound, of emotion, of a belief, and it stores it there. It stores it deep inside of you, and it's shielded. So you likely don't remember it unless you do really deep processes to uncover those memories, something that, I've done for myself. I was trained to do when I was on course for criminal psychology, and that said, that's not necessary. It's actually sometimes a more painful route to actually relive the memory. The ego can get stuck on the memory, and it cannot release the memory. So it's not a mandatory thing for you to remember the trauma in order for it to be completely transmuted. So it gets stuck inside of this little crystallization, and when energy can no longer flow through there, so it becomes a point of your brain that energy, a neurological pathway, that energy is no longer to be able to flow. So say that was the neurological pathway for happiness, for joy, for love, for connection, for harmony, for pleasure, and that neurological pathway now has a block on it, so that no synapses can move through it anymore. So that block, that samskara, that trauma has literally just created a block to happiness, if it's in that neurological pathway, or a block to pleasure, right? So that's how the childhood experiences really kind of shape into that, and also recognizing that is a part of this greater reincarnation and this karma, because it's a really effective mechanism for keeping people enslaved, because they know that if you experience this trauma very young, then you're going to go onto a life of no happiness, of feeling depressed. And then, the pharmaceuticals and all of this, a lot of the drugs and things have actually been produced by this matrix, if you want to call it that, to continue to keep people stuck in their depression. So from my own, experience in life, I had a lot of very early trauma and abuse and, molestation, and these things that happened at a very young age, and it definitely played a part in the depression. That said, now that I've uncovered those pieces, I've actually realized that it is this greater mechanism of continually releasing fragments of our soul and feeling this soul drained and depleted here. And this is very important because I'm going to start wrapping this up because my battery just informed me that it's low, that we strive to commune with our soul and strive to embody our soul, when in actuality currently a lot of souls have been so fragmented and are feeling very defeated here that we've actually got to go beyond our soul, get to higher planes of consciousness to then actually start to heal our soul and then heal our lower bodies as well. So it's a big, beautiful path of really fully integrating and healing at every level of our being. And each piece, John, and just to touch base on that question, each piece of that journey impacts the whole, right? So when I'm supporting someone through depression, it's looking at each and every single piece, because all of them create the big picture. Not only looking at what's happening on your physical human, let's look at what's happening in your soul level and in your oversoul and in the higher levels, to really see how this story has been playing out across many timelines, many lifetimes, so that we can get to the root of it and really dissolve it, so that you can actually feel peace, right? That's really what it's all about. So, continuing to just see if there's any more questions. And it's not just thoughts. I have a parasite attachment that won't leave. And we've had conversations about this before, Carly. You have to use your willpower and actually detach from it. And if we're not willing to detach from the fact that we are being energetically drained, if we're not willing to detach from the stories, we will never release that parasite. Which is why even in this bigger conversation where we're being drained, you've got to be willing to detach from that matrix, from that life force, and to tap into something greater within you and use your willpower to demand something different. And if you are feeling a victim to that, it's because a part of you is giving your power to that parasite and saying, hey, it's okay that you're here. So you really got to look at where you're giving your power away, because we are not a victim in this reality. We willingly give our power away to these parasites, whether they're internal or whether they're etheric or energetic, through continuing to tell the story, through continuing to acknowledge it and to not do something about it and call on your higher will, and to continue to allow it to defeat you. You know, I've gone through a lot of experiences with a lot of interdimensional parasites, and you don't see any attached to me, because there is a lot of discernment and a lot of strong will to really know how to command something out of your field. So you are not a victim to the parasite. It's not leaving because there's a part of you that is still holding on to it. And that can be sometimes hard to hear. We have to fully acknowledge that we are creating our realities. And if we're not able to fully acknowledge that, well, that's fine. That said, there's always going to be a part of you that's limited, because you're not willing to embrace your full creative potential. Detox is a must, Isabel, absolutely. And so let's see any other questions that we come through, just so I can acknowledge them before this phone's battery dies. So don't we choose our parents before coming here for our own growth? Everything is created. We create everything. We create our parents. We create their stories. We create our partners. We create our clients. We create all of it. We create our friends. All of it is created based on your creative consciousness, and what pieces are going to most effectively allow you to solve the puzzle that you have been essentially trapped here, and it's time to free yourself and free your soul to move on. And all of those pieces come together so that we can heal and integrate these parts of ourselves that have been fragmented, and so that we can support their healing. So everything, including our parents, has been chosen and created by us, and that is when we get the most power, is when we really truly own that. And when we truly own that, then forgiveness is the number one key. You must forgive all. And that number one forgiveness point is yourself, because you've created it. So, yes, to answer that question in the simplest terms. And I think that is all of the questions that have come through. So I'm going to wrap this up, because otherwise the phone's going to die, and I want to be able to give you a proper love and appreciation for you joining me live. And for everyone who watches this video in the future, please do feel free to leave your comments and questions in the comments of it, and I'll go back to them and answer them as they come through. So I appreciate you all so much for being here and for being open to receiving this. This is a very important conversation that I intend to be having a lot more of, because I really truly know and radiate that we're entering into a world of peace, and that these key topics and conversations really need to be addressed and supported. And if you're someone that's moving through a lot of depression and suicide and you want support, then reach out. And like I said, if I'm not able to support you, I will refer you to someone who is able to support you. And yeah, so sending you all a lot of love, and appreciation, and I'll see you again soon. And if you know that other people will find value in this video, I appreciate it if you share it. Much love to you all. Thank you.